Are you considering teaching English abroad in Japan? I'm Jamie from ESL Teacher 365, and in today's video, I'm sitting down with Sean from the Interac program. He'll talk about what it's like to teach and live abroad in Japan. So if you've been curious about what this is like, then just keep watching. Thanks so much for coming on the channel today, Sean. We're looking forward to hearing more about teaching in Japan with Interac.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What is the Interac program and what is an ALT?
Great question. Interac is the largest provider of ALTs, so assistant language teachers here in Japan. So what we do is we partner with cities to help provide English teachers to schools. Those schools could be kindergartens, they could be elementary schools, junior high schools, or high schools. ALTs get the unique experience and opportunity to kind of immerse themselves in Japanese schools, where they can either lead a lesson with the assistance from a Japanese teacher of English called JTE, or they could assist the JTE with things like pronunciation, maybe leading activities, possibly giving maybe local expressions where they're from, or maybe they could just be there for language exchange and cultural exchange opportunities.
Why did you choose to teach in Japan with Interac and not with a different program?
No, that's a great question. I did a lot of research before I came over to Japan. I was in America, and I, had a pretty good idea that I wanted to go to Japan, but I didn't want to just, take a huge leap of faith. So I did a lot of research, and I found that
Yeah.
Interac, even 11 years ago when I chose Interac, was the largest. It still is the largest. That was big for me. But one of the bigger things is that when you go into a foreign country and there is that language barrier and that cultural barrier, to have a support system behind you, I think is really important. And that's one thing that I think Interac does very well, is supports the ALTs from before they get over to Japan, after they arrive to Japan, and then beyond. So that support system was very big for me.
That's a good point. So when you're teaching in different countries, sometimes there will be programs where you'll get some support, and sometimes you're just kind of on your own and figuring things out. So it does really depend where you're teaching, which country, but it's nice to know that for people that are interested in teaching in Japan, that there is this option for support. What kind of support do you get before, during, and after?
Great. Well, so before, we'll talk with every person coming over, and we give them a little bit of background on maybe the education system, as well as things to look out for, maybe things to bring, outlet converters and such like that. So
Yeah.
those little things, before we get there. After arriving, we have a training system which focuses not only on just technical skills, but actually how to be successful. Very, very big on success. Now, success looks different for everybody, of course. Nobody has the same success, but our goal is to help you become successful in whatever that end goal looks like for you. So the training not only focuses on just those technical skills, but also focuses on how you can develop yourself in order to reach your goals. After you go off to the your schools and such like that, we don't just leave you in the dark, and it's not just
Yeah.
goodbye from there. We're constantly coming to observe your lessons, coming to meet you, to talk to you, give you phone calls to check in on you. Living in another country at first can be a big deal. And so we want to make sure that you're completely comfortable, completely confident, and you're on that path to success.
Can you walk us through what a typical school day is like? I know it will look different for each teacher, but from your experience and in general, what can be expected?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the most average workday would be maybe 8:30 to 4:30. Now, there are some that start before that and some that end a little bit after. But I would say the average would be 8:30 to 4:30. You arrive at the school, get to your desk. There might be a morning meeting where all the teachers will gather, and the vice principal and the principal have a few words and kind of get everybody on the same page. And then you'll have, maybe 20, 30 minutes, depending on the start of the first period, where you can meet with the teachers that you're going to be teaching with that day, and kind of plan out what you would like them to do, or maybe get the expectation of you that day, and see what you're going to do. There are 6 periods. Elementary school, there's 5 minutes in between each period, with a 20-minute recess in the morning. Junior high school, 10 minutes. Junior high school and high school, there's 10 minutes in between each period, but there's no recess in the morning
Uh,
there. So yeah, elementary school is nice. You get 2 periods, 20-minute break, 2 periods, lunch break, 2 periods and then you're done. Junior high school, you go 1, 2, 3, 4. You get a lunch break and then you go 5, 6. Now, you may not have classes all 6 periods. You may have an off period or 2 or maybe 3. It just depends on the necessity of the day. But yeah, you'll teach your morning classes. You'll have lunch. School lunch is awesome. It's super healthy. It's always very well balanced, and it's really awesome if you get the opportunity to eat lunch with the kids. That's really fun. They're super interested in talking to you, asking you questions while you're eating, and it's a really fun time. Elementary school, after lunch, they have their recess, a second recess, which is a little bit longer than the morning one, and they'll have a cleaning time, and you can join the cleaning
Oh.
time. Yeah, which is really fun. Yeah, they clean the school, have your final 2 lessons of the day, and then go to the gate and say goodbye to everybody, and then start preparing for meet with the teachers that you're going to teach with the next day, and start preparing for your lessons either the next day or maybe next week. Junior high school, the cleaning time comes after school, so that's
Mm.
pretty cool. You can clean with the kids after school, and then junior high school, they've got club activities. So if you're into sports, or if you're into, maybe if they have like an English club or something like that, you can join those clubs and kind of connect with the kids even further.
I really like what you said about the school lunches. That was my experience
Mhm.
in Spain as well. So, I
Okay.
mean, coming from the US and not having the best quality school lunches, it is really interesting to try kind of cultural foods and see what they get. And it's, yeah, usually a lot better than ours. And it
Mhm.
is a really good moment to talk to the kids because there's no stress. You're not teaching them vocabulary words. You're just having little conversations. So that's interesting that it's a very similar experience in Japan as well as what I've had in some other countries too. What would you
Okay.
say are some of the pros and some of the cons as being an English teacher in Japan?
Yeah, great question. The pros, definitely cultural immersion.
Mm.
I, like many people, tend to, watch, either dramas or anime, or read some manga, right? And I always see like Japanese school life, or if you play video games as well, you see Japanese school life, and to actually get to live it is pretty cool. It was pretty surreal at first. I'm not gonna lie. Japan is also very safe, and it's very clean for the most part. So that's important. So I really like that about Japan. It's super safe. If you forget to lock your door 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to be all right. And of course, I can't forget to mention the amazing public transportation that Japan has. A lot of trains. I live in a city that has 2 train lines. Osaka, I can't count. I don't have enough fingers to count how many different train lines and buses there are here. So, a lot of great public transportation for sure. And of course, being in Japan, not so much just like the teaching part of it, but the travel opportunities. Japan is one of the most interesting countries because every single prefecture has something that it's famous for, whether it's food or attractions, or maybe nature. There's something to do or eat or try at every single prefecture. So that's really, really awesome. But of course, there's no perfect world. So we have
Yeah.
pros, but we also have cons as well. I studied Japanese 4 years before I came here, and there was still a language barrier.
Wow.
Yeah, and to this day, I still am always. I tend to learn something every day, working here in a Japanese office where the majority of the conversations are done in Japanese. And when you're off in school, if you're in a junior high school, or if you're teaching with an English or a high school or an English specialized teacher, you do get to speak in English. But the majority of the teachers, they have a very basic understanding, but they may not have the ability to have conversations. So the language barrier is definitely one of the bigger cons. And then, of course, if you're in a rural placement, maybe off in the
Mhm.
countryside, you can feel a little bit isolated. So I would say those would be 2 of the bigger cons. But once you start doing a little bit of exploring, I like to think of those rural placements more as more for you to explore, more so than the city. So yeah, it does, the language barrier does get easier over time, and of course with study, and of course if you're off in a rural placement, even though it is a con at first. I think the more exploring you do, the more maybe clubs, recreational clubs, and stuff that you join, and you start making friends, that starts to become better. I would say another con would be the cultural differences in the workplace. With especially when it comes to feedback. Uh, Japanese people tend not to give direct feedback. So,
Mm.
you may ask your Japanese teacher, "How was the lesson?" And the teacher says, "Great." And then they give us a call and, "Hey, actually, we want this person to fix A, B, C, and D." And then I'll call you and, "Hey, they're hoping that you fix A, B, C, and D." And no, 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 they told me it was great. But so yeah, the feedback can sometimes take a little bit of time. There's also ambiguity that you kind of have to, uh, work through, as well as a different communication style. So, for example, Japanese people are quite high context communicators, whereas, like for me, I'm from America, we're quite low context, which means when I communicate, I'm telling you exactly what I think. But when a Japanese person communicates, you kind of have to read a little bit between the lines. So, if I ask somebody, "Hey, you want to go out tonight and maybe we can go to dinner?" The answer they might give me would be, maybe some other time, right? That typically means no. Once you get used to it, I'd say it's not a con, but yeah, that can be challenging at first.
I think that's pretty much across like any country. It's always going to be a bit different from what you're used to, and obviously changes from culture to culture. But my tips for that would just be try and be flexible, ask questions. Also, it's helpful to talk to maybe other expats who have been in your country for quite a while to help interpret some of this. But it is a learning process, and just be willing to see things from a different perspective and try your best to understand. But yes, I've had situations very similar in other countries where same thing, like, oh, everything's going great, and then you find out a few months later that they're not happy with certain things. So just trying to be as open as you can, but know that it is going to be a bit challenging.
Open-mindedness and flexibility is key, and don't expect things to be done exactly as they'd be done where you're from.
For people that are interested in improving their Japanese during their
Mhm.
time abroad in Japan, would you recommend a rural placement over a city, or would you say that you're still going to have enough opportunities for immersion in a bigger city?
That's a great question, and it really does depend on the area that you're in. Some of the rural places have, like I was in a very very small city, but it did have an interesting international club,
Oh, okay.
and so yeah, so that's really cool. And then of course, if you're in the bigger cities, people do tend to speak a bit more English. But I can tell you this: whether you're in a big city or whether you're in the countryside, you are going to have that chance to learn Japanese. It's just going to be the dialect that you learn, right? Whether it's going to be maybe city, maybe rural, or if you're in Tokyo versus Osaka, the dialect that you're going to be learning is a little bit different. So the opportunities are always there. They just may be a little bit different.
Let's talk about the actual application. So, what tips do you
Sure.
have for people that are applying to Interac and going through the application process?
Absolutely. The first one is be professional. We want to see your professionalism. Come dressed appropriately. Piercings for the ladies, maybe standard one per ear. The guys, facial hair neatly groomed. Be professional. Be on time. We're looking for people who can not only show up on time, but maybe are prepared and ready to go before the time starts. Because that's going to show us that we can, send you off to a school with, absolute confidence. The other thing too is bring the energy, smile. I want to see what you're going to do in the classroom. So if you can bring that energy into the interview, I think that's great.
I know that you've been in Japan for a long time, but what
Mhm.
would you say is your favorite memory or one of your favorite memories from teaching in Japan?
Sure. Actually, it wasn't specifically teaching, but it was school related. So I had a really unique opportunity to coach the girls basketball team at my junior high school.
Ah, that's
And
amazing.
yes, it was so much fun, and the girls, we studied English on the buses and the trains to games and stuff like that. My favorite memory is, it might sound funny, but we were quite a strong team, and typically public schools don't quite make it. Typically the private schools are a lot stronger in terms of sports, as children usually recruited for that. But we made it to the final eight of the Osaka prefecture tournament, and we ended up losing on like a half court shot, and I just remembered because this is 3 years after I'd been coaching them, and it was my last year at that school before I was coming into this Osaka office, and we just cried on the bus the whole way back. Myself, the Japanese teacher, and and about 12 junior high school girls just kind of sat there and cried the whole way back. And yeah, it was a bummer because we had worked so hard. But looking back, that was probably my favorite memory from teaching.
Wow. What about your travel experiences? Did you
Mhm.
travel a lot when you were in ALT, or what do you think about people who are wanting to teach abroad but also have a bit of the travel itch?
Sure. No, I think the two pair perfectly together. Yes, I did travel a lot. I went up to Sapporo for the snow festival, which was really, really fun. I went to Tokyo quite a few times. Of course, Tokyo Disneyland. Of course, Nagoya has Legoland, which is pretty cool. There's Mount Fuji. I've been there. And then, of course, in the Kansai area, a lot of onsen, so natural hot springs and baths and things like that is really cool. But I think my favorite thing is just traveling around and eating all the food. I really love food, and Japan has some awesome food. And there's some food at first that when you hear about it, you'd never want to try it. But then once you do, it's a pretty cool experience.
If someone is on the fence about applying to Interac, what would you tell them to help them make their decision?
I would say go for it. I think it's a unique chance to live abroad, and you gain professional teaching experience. I think that's something that is good. That'll help you kind of build into maybe a master's degree if that's the path you wanted to take, or maybe you can grow personally, learn about different cultures. I think it prepares you for any kind of work that you're going to do in the future. You're going to be jumping into a culture that's completely different from your own, in a different language. So you're going to have to change your mindset. You're going to have to change the speed at which you talk. The contracts are a year, so I think you can kind of just say, okay, I'll try this out for a year and see how it goes, and who knows, you may be here 11 years like me.
If you are interested in teaching in Japan, I do have a link to the application, so you can go to eslteacher365.com/interact. And thanks so much, Sean, for coming on the channel today and telling us about your experience teaching in Japan. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and what other countries or programs would you like to learn about? Just leave a comment down below. You can find me on Instagram at eslteacher365, and I'll see you next time. Happy teaching!